The very first topic we're going to look at for Roman socio-political life is the Roman family, which formed the basis for Roman society. Remember that you need to make notes on these key questions as we go through the video. So, what do the following Latin terms mean? Paterfamilias, patria potestas, and materfamilias, and how did the role and expectations of family members change over time? Remember to pause me at any time if you want to stop and take some notes. So to start off with, the Latin word familia, which is where we get our word for family from, was the basic social unit at Rome. The familia or household was made up of, as we would expect, parents and children, but also included the extended family. And the Romans also considered their slaves as part of their household. So the first of the important terms we need to know is paterfamilias. This literally means father of a family, and it referred to the head of the family, who was usually the oldest male in the household. He had power known as patria potestas, or a father's power, over all the members of his family. And theoretically, this was the power of life and death, which he held over everyone in his household. So of course he had control of the money in the household, and if he needed more he could sell his children as slaves, and he could also say who his children married. It was important for the paterfamilias to be married to produce legitimate heirs to continue the family line, and all those in the household, so not just his biological children but any other extended family living there, had to obey them. A son would only become a paterfamilias after the death of his father, so he could, as an adult, still be under the control of his paterfamilias. However, this absolute life and death authority did weaken over time. The power of life over life and death was abolished, and the right of the paterfamilias to punish his family was made a bit less severe. It was also restricted that you could sell your children into slavery, so only if you desperately needed the money. As well as the paterfamilias, the materfamilias, or mother of a family, is another important member of the household. So as you would expect, she was the mother of the household, and her status was about equivalent to that of the paterfamilias, although it did depend on how much money she brought into the relationship in her dowry and how important her own family was. So there were a number of important qualities which a Roman woman needed to have. So she needed to be faithful to her husband, she needed to produce children, be modest in her appearance and behaviour, she needed to be kind towards children, beautiful in a modest way, and she needed to be religious. And she was expected to stay at home weaving, looking after the children and taking care of her household. However, as with the paterfamilias, the role of the materfamilias did change over time. And a large factor of this was the fact that Rome had longer military campaigns, and so men spent a lot of time away serving in the army. This left the women in charge of the households, and so it gave them more power and responsibility. Also, as Rome became more prosperous and the men became more educated, so did the women, and so this gave women more skills and more ability to influence their husbands. By 100 BC, so the time we'll be studying, we see women getting involved in politics to help their husbands, and they also gained a number of additional rights, including the ability to control their dowries, to divorce their husbands, and keep their property separate to that of their husbands. And wealthy women were able to pursue their own interests, so whether it was business, culture, or just catching up with friends, while the slaves were left to do the chores. So they ended up having quite a bit of freedom. So now I need you to make sure that you've got the answers to these key questions. So make sure you've defined these Latin terms paterfamilias, patria potestas, and materfamilias. And also make sure that you've got some notes on how the role and expectations of the family members changed over time. Make a note of any difficulties or questions you have, and we'll discuss them in class.